Thanks and welcome to the Snowy's Camping Show. We're probably on our third start to this episode so far.
Two false starts. If this was a swimming event, we would have been disqualified by now.
I've got a hot lemon water and like Ben says, have a coffee and we should have done this right. So thanks for tuning in today again. How are you, Ben?
I'm well, thank you. On this cold and rainy morning.
Yep. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast, whether that be your favourite podcast app or YouTube or on Spotify, where we've now got our vodcast, our video of our podcast there.
Mm-hmm.
Today we've got an awesome interview lined up for you with Brooke from HipCamp. Now, we'll throw away to Brooke in just a minute, but I just wanted to sort of reference an episode that we had recently around the proposed changes to camping in New South Wales national parks and the potential, outlay that puts in place for the rest of the states to sort of follow suit. And HipCamp was raised a lot around the discussion on that episode. So we thought we'd sort of get on the train there and find out a little bit more about HipCamp. Because
as an alternative to the parks
as an alternative and find sort of work out how you can find sort of more alternative or creative ways to get out and enjoy your natural spaces.
Yep. So we have on the line Brooke from HipCamp. Brooke, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. My first podcast.
Your first podcast. Wow, welcome. You've gone right top shelf to go straight to the Snowy's Camping Show. A little bit about you, Brooke, who you are and your position at HipCamp.
So, yep, Brooke, we got that one right. And my position now at HipCamp is the head of global social media. So I look after all our social channels globally. HipCamp is global. We're not just Australia. We're Australia, New Zealand, North America, the UK, and some in France. But predominantly our main focus is Australian and American markets. I've been with the HipCamp team for 9 years. I originally started as the first team member in Australia when it was YouCamp, which a lot of your listeners who are HipCamp, YouCamp enthusiasts probably remember. YouCamp started in Australia in 2013. It's been in existence the same length of time as HipCamp, and we always knew each other as cousins, in different continents. And so I joined the team in 2016 when YouCamp moved from being a directory-based model to a marketplace, a booking platform in 2016. So been here 9 years and have really seen it grow and change. And TikTok wasn't around when I first started, and here I am, head of global social media for HipCamp.
Yeah, wow. So it looks like HipCamp. I was just looking this morning, actually, and I just noticed there's a heap of blog content on there as well that I think is your content. Do you write that as well? So
I contribute some of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So big resource.
Not all of it.
So sorry, YouCamp and HipCamp were two separate things that then came together. Is that right? I thought one turned into the other, but yeah. Okay. Did not know that.
So HipCamp acquired YouCamp in 2020.
Okay. And are they?
Yeah. So
where does it originate from? Where did HipCamp and YouCamp, where did they originate from?
So let me tell you a little bit about both. So YouCamp was the Australian founders. There were two founders, James Woodford and Prue Bartlett, were the two founders, and I was the first team member that joined YouCamp.
Right. Okay.
Founded on the south coast of New South Wales in a town called Bingee, and they had a property and they used to have campers come all the time every summer when all the local caravan parks were full. And they're like, there's something here. We've got people here. We're having a great time. We could charge people to come and stay here. And that was the seed for YouCamp in 2012-ish.
Okay.
In America, it started in San Francisco with the founder and CEO, Alyssa Ravazio. She was so frustrated with trying to find a campsite. She booked a campsite that had an amazing surf break, and she forgot to bring a surfboard, and there was just so much information she didn't know about this campsite that she booked, and she was really frustrated, and it's really hard to find great campsites in America. So she started HipCamp in San Francisco around the same time YouCamp started.
Okay.
And so we joined forces in 2020, and YouCamp became HipCamp.
Okay. So I would say the HipCamp profile has grown significantly recently, and I guess probably since 2020 then. So would you attribute those forces coming together is why it was kind of always there but not used much, but where it is now compared to, I guess 2020.
It really wasn't in Australia.
Yeah.
It really wasn't in Australia until 2020. So I guess people probably just really started hearing about it in the past 5 years. Up until then, and people knew it as YouCamp.
Yeah, okay.
What do you sort of like? Obviously, I guess what's the difference between the HipCamp and the YouCamp platform? Were they sort of managed the same, function the same, private landholders? Yeah, because the reason, I guess, why I'm asking that question is if YouCamp was around since 2013 and now HipCamp sort of come in 2020 and we've seen a big sort of boom in HipCamp, would that be attributed, do you think, more so to the marketing resources and the company resources after consolidation, or a community or cultural thing?
I would say a combined effort of multiple different resources. So the YouCamp was a team of 3, and very little marketing budget or budget in general, not just for marketing, but just for web development, app development. Websites are expensive to run and maintain, and a team of 3 with quite a small margin on a camping fee. It was really hard to get the volume to make a decent amount of money. When we joined forces with HipCamp, it came with an engineering team, an app, a marketing budget. We have investors from the States in HipCamp, so there's a lot more backing to succeed.
Okay. For those who maybe don't know much about HipCamp, how would you differentiate HipCamp from the likes of the quite well-known platforms, I suppose, like WikiCamps is something that people have never heard of it. They probably go to WikiCamps, there's Campermate. I can't think of the others. There's 1 or 2 others, but what differentiates HipCamp from those?
I think we offer so that I can probably get to this a little bit more, but I think predominantly a lot of the camps at this stage in Australia, which is probably what the listeners are listening, like more so the listeners, we have a vast majority of private land, only on HipCamp options. And we offer insurance for those hosts. So it's a really great way for them to feel protected and host in a safe way with formalities in place, us taking care of the payments. It's just really easy for people to host. Other apps don't offer that. WikiCamp's just introduced booking processes, like a booking option last year. But to my knowledge, don't offer the ability for hosts to be insured on that platform and just list there. I think, we really are the home of unique stays and just great places to camp.
Okay.
So would it be fair to say that HipCamp is like the camping version of Airbnb?
We get that comparison a lot, and it's not something we like to compare ourselves to, because we're actually moving very quickly towards being the largest OTA camping platform in the world. So when I say that, when you might want to think about how Expedia aggregates all the accommodation options, so that there's more of the structure based. You can go to booking.com or Expedia and you can find them all there.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist for camping, and we're a little bit ahead in the States than we are in Australia. But now this summer in the States, we've just added over 250,000 campsites, making there to be 500,000 campsites discoverable on the HipCamp app, including national parks, all national parks, and including all public lands. So this is the vision for Australia, where we have national parks on HipCamp and also public campgrounds as well.
Okay. And everything listed on HipCamp is a bona fide campsite. I know some platforms I've turned up to what people have listed as a campsite and as questionably a spot that you should actually camp at, but everything on HipCamp's actually, you rock up and it is definitely a site that's okay to camp on?
Our guidance to hosts is to check with their council to know what the rules and regulations are in their state, and that's something we can talk a little bit further about, because that's one of the biggest challenges that we do face at HipCamp, is the varying different regulations, council by council, state by state. So that's something it's the host's responsibility to know that they're hosting within the local requirements of their land, of their council area.
Okay.
Do you have, assuming if I'm a private landholder, can I just go on HipCamp and advertise my property without there being an application process? Or do you guys have a vetting process for people that offer spots to sort of ensure the platform is maintaining like a quality of offering?
You can list your land. We do not disqualify. It's a platform to list land. It's the host's list campsites. Okay. It's the owner's/host responsibility to know if they're hosting legally, meeting with the local permit requirements.
Yes. So aside from the legalities and the permit requirements, is there anything, I guess, because when I was having a look at HipCamp not too long ago, there was a few places that came up, and one is in a similar area. One was literally just a vacant plot of land that somebody had bought as like, say, a house plot. Happened to be waterfront, but it was literally just gravel, like no scrub, nothing or whatever. And then there was another property not far down the road, and it was on an actual farm, and it was just the environment and the set and setting, right? It was totally different. So that just sort of raised a question in my mind about whether or not there wasn't sort of, I guess, an application process for the property when someone's advertising on HipCamp, but there's not there.
It's their responsibility to know. And we do we get a lot of feedback from the community, and we certainly take action and review listings and then take them down if they're not right. Mm-hmm. So it's something that is it does happen.
Yeah. So properties are ultimately autonomous. You're just providing a platform. Yeah.
So I guess the users should really be doing their research as well. Still look at the reviews and the likes,
the reviews, the photos. The reviews and photos are a really great indicator. So there's recommended rates, there's review rates, and that usually gives you a really good indication of what the campsite's like.
Mm-hmm. And it includes caravan parks, holiday parks. All of those are listed on YouCamp?
It does, yeah. Yep. So in recent years, so we're expanding our inventory quite a lot to be the number one app where you can open. If you want to go camping, you go, okay, I want to go HipCamp. So at the moment we have caravan parks, Ingenia, smaller chains. We're really, even cabins, more boutique accommodation, like structures, glamping stays, eco resorts. But really camping and caravanning is where we're at, what our strength is.
Yeah. And the benefits of someone, I assume they can then book those caravan parks through your platform, or do they go to the caravan park to book it? So what would be the benefit of booking it on the actual platform rather than direct with a caravan park?
Look, a lot of people like using HipCamp. They have a profile, they collect, there's a little community, they collect patches. There's this really, I think it's just probably ease as well, so that you can, rather than having to have multiple tabs open, you can just see, okay, there's this one here, there's 3 different options here. We do see it quite a lot that people probably would jump offline and book direct. It happens. Yeah. I think there's a figure of around, it's like about 90% of customers we send to caravan parks are first-time customers who will likely book direct when they return. So it's actually something we're proud of, that we're introducing this new community, this new customer to campgrounds, and it's one of our really big selling points. So, for example, like to Ingenia, to other chains, that when you're on HipCamp, you're exposing yourself to a community of 1.5 million campers who are looking for, they go to HipCamp because they've got great places to stay. I want a campsite. They're not necessarily set on what they want at that point. And so they might see a Great Ingenia pop up or another caravan park pop up, or the private land option. And, I think that I'm a really firm believer in there's room for all types of campsites and caravan parks. And I see it a lot myself. I see a lot of campers like this style behind me. They want to like rough it, bush camp for a few nights. Then they might want, a little bit of luxury, do some washing, do some laundry, book in a caravan park for a few nights, spend some money in town, move on to the next location. So I see a lot of people mixing up their stays with different types of accommodation. Yep. And I see it on social media, especially on Facebook, quite a lot, that people comment that they like, that they do use both. So there's a place for both. And then there's and then, of course, there's the element around having like lots of space on HipCamps. So you generally not crammed in with like a caravan park style setup.
Yep. Is there generally a requirement, and maybe we'll touch on this a bit with sort of the regulations and stuff that you guys have to deal with, but in the back of my mind when I was looking at HipCamp quite a few years ago now, most of the sites you had to be self-contained, and I guess largely nowadays most of the time you have to be anyway, but for most farm stays, are you finding people are just offering the land saying come self-contained, and then I guess from the host perspective, they don't really have to implement as much infrastructure or look after as much infrastructure, I suppose?
So there's two answers to that. I guess from a host's perspective, it's really easy to get started without a big an outlay. You can just open up your paddock gates. You can join HipCamp today, take your booking tonight, and start hosting tomorrow. Obviously depending on what your place is like. So it's very easy for hosts to get a feel if their place is popular, if they like having campers on their land. And often it leads to like further pathways for them to expand, to add new things once they get a feel for hosting they're essentially becoming a tourism hospitality operator as well as a farmer. So I guess for hosts, it's a great way for them to know if their area is popular, if their what their offerings appealing. And then on the campus side, technology has advanced so much with what's on offer in camping and in the off-road setups that a lot of people are looking for private places where they have everything they need and they don't need facilities. They like to be self-contained. They like to be able to pull up wherever they want and have the flexibility to camp wherever and whenever they want. So especially since COVID and the huge influx of off-road caravans that are I don't want to get too much in the self-contained category because that's a discussion on its own. I've had many discussions over self-contained, but a lot of them are very capable of enjoying a space like this and leaving no trace when they leave.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the leave no trace is the big message there. Just come in and all you've left is wheel tracks or footprints.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you look online, sorry, I'm going to move on to
No, I was just going to say one of the things that I sort of like about HipCamp is when you're sort of looking for a campsite, you can search for things like swimming holes, for example, right? Like you can search for sort of elements of the campsite that you want to find, which I think is quite unique in a lot of other platforms that you're looking for campsites that potentially don't have that same level of detail there. But does that come down to the property owner to ascertain the facilities they have?
Yeah. There's certain tick boxes to go through when you list your land, whether it's farm, river. So it's up to them to make sure they tick those boxes, and it's in their interest to obviously be truthful about what they're offering. My biggest advice is to always just be really clear with what you're offering, and then there's not any disappointment. There's usually exceed expectations is what I find more often than not. And in terms of things like ticking toilets and four-wheel drive access or four-wheel drive recommended, setting the rates, Like the host is in complete control of everything. The rules that campers agree to, the booking window periods, they have a lot of nimbleness to host when they want, when it suits them. We have some people that just host on weekends. We have some people that just host 3 months of the year. Like Western Australia is a great example of that. Hosts are usually just open May to September. It's just too hot and dry and too much, bushfire risk other times of the year, so that they just host when it suits them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about the reviews we see online for HipCamp, and this isn't to put you on the spot. This is, I guess, just to talk about it, because obviously there's a lot of positives about HipCamp, and as reviews tend to go, you hear about the best and you hear about the worst. Unfortunately, it's often the worst that jump online and speak their experience when there's probably a large percentage of people who haven't had a bad experience and love it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk to some of the points with those reviews. Most of the time, people saying things like they don't, there's no support for hosts or guests or that sort of thing, which it contradicts the conversation we've just had, that HipCamp's there to support both sides of it. What's your sort of response to the reviews there?
So that there's no support for hosts or campers. I would disagree. We have a team of 3 in Australia. So, Australian-based team members who look after support globally, and there's about a team of 5 or 6 based in America. So probably all up, and we bring on extra contractors during US peak season. I think what it comes down to is our society and technology, people expect stuff instantly, and it's just where our culture's going. And I think our response rate, I'd have to, do not quote me on it, but it's probably something like 24 to 48 hours. I think probably where those negative comments may be coming from, could be just dissatisfied with the response that they get. For a really great example, really top host, been with us a long time, had some campers that didn't have a good stay. Don't know why, but they left a bad review and saying they didn't have a good stay. And this host was really upset about that because they work really hard and they've been with us for a long time. They asked us to remove that review, and our response was, sorry, it doesn't meet our guidelines to remove that review. We take reviews really seriously, and there's actually rules and regulations in Australia about review removal, and campers are entitled to their opinion. And so this long-term great host was really upset because her recommended rate moved from 100 down to 98%, and she's and I can understand that when you work really hard as a host to give good service, when one particular camper can ruin your review rate. So a host may say that we don't give them good support because we didn't back them up and remove that review, but then we also have to acknowledge the campers are entitled to their own opinion of their stay and abide by local, Australian rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm. So
I think it's, sorry, Ben, I was going to say, I think it probably a majority of people who are interacting with a platform and reading reviews can read between the lines, you know, like if someone has a 98% rating and one of their reviews is poor and all the others are excellent, to me as somebody who wants to purchase a product, or that's not enough for me to just be dissuaded. Does that make sense? You're looking for consistent themes there, really, aren't you?
And that's actually the advice that we give back to hosts. And I actually always jump straight to the reviews. Even when I'm profiling a place on social media, I want to see what the community has said about it. And hosts who just respond, I'm really sorry that you had a bad time. You must have been in a bad. There's really tactful ways you can respond and show you're still a good host. Like this person who's complained has obviously got some other things going on in their life that's impacted their stay, and I'm really sorry about that. So I would, our team, one of the things that's kept me here at HipCamp for 9 years is our team. It's really great people. There's, I would say, close to 70 all up, 9 in Australia, a few in the UK, most in North America. So we're all humans. It's hard. We have a lot of bookings that we process. it's really hard to, and it's something we try really hard to do, is to give good service. But I guess, it's customer service is hard. I know Snowy's does a great job at it.
We do our best. So those reviews, I think it's great. We have the same policy here that we don't take negative reviews down. It's more about how you respond to it. But those hosts have the opportunity to respond to those reviews individually. It's not HipCamp, it's the host. Okay.
Yeah, we can't touch reviews. We can edit a review if we ask. The process would be to contact the camper, get their side of the story. Would you like to change the review? But we have the ability under our guidelines, I think, to edit it with the camper's permission. I'd have to check what our guidelines actually say on that. But reviews are sacred. We have some really strict guidelines around that. And I think back to your question around people, commenting there's no host or customer support. There is. We have a team. It's 24/7. It may not be as fast as you like, but we'll always get back to you. You may not like the answer you get, but you'll get a response. And there are ways to escalate it. I actually get quite a lot of Instagram DMs from people who use that as a support mechanism. And I'm like, can't help you here, contact support. And if quite often they may come back, unhappy. And I say, it's not nothing I can't help you further here. But how about we look at maybe put a positive spin on it. If it's a host, can we give you a social feature? Can we do something else to make you feel better? Because we know that, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
I think some of the reviews too were people had an expectation that there would just be a host there. They'd turn up somewhere and there'd just be someone waiting for them. Like there's a reception desk or something, which I'm thinking is an unreasonable expectation for a campsite.
There to be somebody there to greet me.
I just want to know the campsite's empty.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely something for hosts to set that expectation. And this is, what we do tell them. There's a section during their directions. It's like meet and greet or go straight to camp. So we really do give hosts, we try to set them up as best as possible for success and meeting camper expectations. Besides the ingenies of the world who are experts at it, a lot of the times they're farmers who aren't hospitality or tourism experts. So these are people learning new skills, and some people are naturally more people than other people. Do it better, love it. And it's actually I've seen some really good studies on the benefits of mental health, and some farmers experiencing depression who the highlight of their week is the campers, they end up having a beer at the campfire. It's like therapy. Everyone loves it, both sides, the campers and the hosts. And then there's some hosts that I've got a business to run. The camping side is just my agritourism diversification. Here's every XYZ you need to know. Off you go and look after yourself, but I'm up at the homestead if you need me. So I think people probably who may complain about the lack of a welcome committee, maybe newer HipCamp users that are yet to really sort of know that there is a variety of meet and greet processes, and the host is to set them. And it all comes down to communication. We love hosts to be good communicators, but we also know that a lot of them are busy farmers as well. I'll pause in a sec, but we have one really busy beef farmer in Queensland who spends about 6 hours a day admin on his HipCamp listing.
Wow.
Managing DMs, bookings, messaging back, because his access is quite difficult. So campers will book a spot and not read everything that he has listed as appropriate to come to his place. And over the years, he's had people turn up, get bogged, get stuck, recovery. So he'll have to do quite a bit of back and forwards to make sure that people coming are set up correctly. So, it's not just, there's work behind the scenes that smart hosts factor into their fees. Like it's a job, it's admin, it's running a little business.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds to me like the reviews, the negative reviews are aimed at HipCamp when it's, you're providing the platform, but is a bit on the host there to manage expectations. Like you said, I think that's a big one. But and there's no reception desk for a campsite. National parks don't have a reception desk for a campsite. You turn up and you camp.
Yeah.
I think that the HIP camps I've stayed at, usually the directions would go something along the lines of gate code access is this, go straight to camp. I'll pop past and make sure you've got everything you need when I get home from work. Like, these are usually their third job, by the way. Like, a lot of our typical hosts, school teachers, they might have a second job, running kids around, and then they come and see the campers, make sure the campers are settled in at night or in the morning. And then the other style is stop in at the house on the way, and I'll escort you to camp, because I want to make sure you get to the right spot and that you're on the right spot and that I know where you are. So those are the two different styles that I find. I personally like the meet and greet myself, especially because they're big properties usually, and definitely want to arrive before dark to make sure you get there right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little caravan parks aren't that much different. You turn up and it's just your key and an envelope. You find your way to your camp.
Yeah.
No meet and greet there. Wanted to move on and not directly asking for your thoughts on the New South Wales camping reforms that Lauren mentioned earlier, but that was a topic that we discussed a little while ago. I think there's a lot of positives and negatives that come out of that. Certainly changes in camping fees, some higher fees and lower fees. And obviously there's regulations and it gets quite in depth, all that sort of conversation. But I know HipCamp, I don't understand in full, but I know there's some sort of red tape and regulations that you guys have to sort of deal with or tiptoe around, I suppose. What are the major impacts HipCamp or your hosts have in terms of what they can and can't do when hosting a campsite?
Yeah. I think like the biggest way, the easiest way I would summarize it is a lot of our hosts don't fit into the categories that are set up for approvals. So there's a grey area of a farm property offering 5 campsites. I think New South Wales has done a great job of that with the agritourism regulations. So first state in 2023, so the first state in Australia to introduce statewide agritourism regulations, makes it easy for farmers who are registered as a farm to host campers. They can have, I think it's 5 or 6 sites, no more than 20 campers in self-contained setup without seeking council approval. So this, you should be registered as a primary producer for tax purposes in order to do that. But that is like an easy model, and we would absolutely love to see something like that nationwide. Mm-hmm. The reality is not every council in New South Wales has to adopt that. Some have rejected it, which makes it challenging. There's a couple who rejected it. And then you move, over the border to Queensland, and they have nothing, and they have their statewide regulations, and then individual councils have different interpretations of that. So if you're in the Fraser Coast, for example, you can have self-contained campers a lot easier than you can in the Scenic Rim. So there's so many different rules and regulations per council, per state, and a lot of them are outdated. Pre-COVID, pre-smartphones, we've come a long way with what people camp in, what they use to book their campsites, what they expect from a booking experience. So I think Queensland's just last week released their 2045. This is actually might be a good future topic for you to dig into. So the Queensland government just released their 2045 tourism strategy, and a lot of it hinges around nature-based experiences and low impact camping gets a mention in there, and supporting rural landowners and making it easier for farmers to host campers and cutting the red tape. So I know we're in talks with an agritourism body who's already formed in Queensland. So Queensland will be next for agritourism to be more recognised and easier for farmers to host. And I think a HipCamp stance is that we fully support and want regulations. We want there to be an easy, like it doesn't have to be easy. It just needs to be sensible. There are some hosts who we know pay over $60,000 to apply to have like a caravan park permit. But these hosts don't want amenities blocks. The campers don't want amenities blocks. The hosts don't want camp kitchens. The campers don't want camp kitchens. The hosts don't want dump points. The campers don't want dump points. So there's like regulations that say this is what a caravan park needs to offer. And then there's farm-based camp stays that people want, but doesn't fit really anywhere easily. New South Wales has done a good job, room for improvement, but it's a great starting point. So I think, yeah.
No, I was going to say it's wild to me, and I don't really want to open up the can here, but it's wild to me that you can have a property that's your personal property, you pay rates on, you already meet, and that you can't just have someone come and stay for the weekend without some level of government having to be involved in that. Like it to me, that's completely wild. Like I understand if it's, I don't know.
So are there often extra fees and things hosts would have to pay? I guess it's all council based in order to do this?
Like one example of a host who, the last host I know who was formally approved as a primitive campground in New South Wales, which is kind of like you fit into the agritourism, which is you're a farm, you've got 15 hectares, you've got 20 campers. So that's option one. If you don't fit into that, if you're not a primary producer, you need to apply for a primitive campground application, which will likely include an accessible toilet for wheelchairs, probably 3 or 4 stall toilet block, and a lot of survey reports. 2 years later, around $50,000.
Oh my gosh! For a primitive campground.
Sorry, that's a no.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, if I owned a farm and I just let my family and friends come and spend the weekend there whenever the hell they wanted, I wouldn't have to do anything, right?
Yeah.
It's just it's wild to me.
That's difficult, yeah.
But obviously it's not that hard considering how many partners HipCamp have, like land partners all around Australia.
Well, I guess
it's obviously not that hard.
I guess some councils are far less.
I would say it's hard. When you dig into it, it's hard to navigate for hosts. We're actually we're putting on a new person. There's going to be a new Australian-based team member who will be in charge of our government and community relations to help shape the future of this in conjunction with state ministers, councils, because we are here we're looking ahead, 20 years, Queensland 2045, like we're planning to be here then as well. And we really want a world where it's easy. I know our hosts will pay money to be permitted and to, feel like they're doing the right thing, because we're a very regulated country. We do fine people for a lot of things, and people like to do the right thing, and they're quite sort of scared by their councils. So I know hosts will pay money to be approved. Something like, I would say the average host on HipCamp earns $15,000 a year. I'm not going to get rich on that. That's like animal top-up feed. That's like my little trip to Fiji, a little treat, maybe fences. It's really top-up income for a lot of hosts. But, I think hosts would likely pay something like on the lines of $15,000 to be approved. They don't want to pay $60,000 to $80,000. That's a commercial caravan park, and you need not have one rooftop tent. You need to have 100 rooftop tents on your land, and they don't want to do that. And campers don't want to camp beside 100 rooftop tents.
No. I understand a small fee that makes sense, but 50 just makes people. And I think we do need more, and that came from that conversation we had around the New South Wales fees as well, that people want more options for camping. There's so many more people camping now. The whole ghost camping thing, people booking ahead of time, that was everything we discussed. And people have got more options, then it might ease up the headaches around that. You mentioned Scenic Rim before, and I know when we were emailing prior to this, you said there was a petition or something happened in the Scenic Rim in Queensland to try and save hip camps. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I can. So I actually to this day don't know who started that petition. It was started in February. I think it may have been started by a host who was asked to follow, like they essentially closed, but council will probably say they didn't close them, but they asked them to follow the approval process, and it was probably going to cost that person, around the 50K mark. Don't quote me on that, but it was. So that host ended up closing. I think that's where it started. And then I think Scenic Rim is just an extremely popular area, beautiful creeks everywhere. It's just sort of very accessible for people in the Gold Coast and Brisbane. And I think there's been some press about, it started with some press about council wanting hosts to follow a permitting process, which is difficult for hosts. One of the long-term hosts was looking at having to put in new roads, upwards to $50,000-$60,000 to be approved. And that was just, he's a teacher. He was also a councillor member. Again, hosting was his third job. So a little bit of media around that. And then I think actually what I think has been most interesting is how the social support's really grown on it. So it started with what I saw was a current affairs story. So a current affair saw newspaper articles printed from the local Scenic Rim area. They contacted, the host that was mentioned in that article. They contacted HipCamp, which I spoke to, which I agreed to an interview, just talking about hosts being closed in the area because, they weren't going through the right approval process, which was costly. And then Sean from 4WD 24/7, it must have come across his feed. Like they actually they've used YouCamp for a long time. We know they use YouCamp and HipCamp. They've got a huge following, and I'm not sure how it came across his feed, but he shared something on his channel and linked to the petition, and it kind of grew from about 2,000 signatures to 22,000 signatures in about a week. So we are working really closely with the Scenic Rim Council in a really positive way. We have open communication with them. I had a conversation with the mayor only last week, conversation with the general manager and the CEO. We want hosts in the area to be approved and to follow. Our advice is for them to make appointments, go and see the planning team and get started on their approval process. But the thing is, a lot of the overlay reports and the things that they need to do are really expensive and prohibitive for a lot of the farmers to do. So with the new Queensland 2045 plan and their focus on regional and rural tourism and helping farmers earn an income and agri-tourism, hopefully there's going to be a good path forward for Queensland farmers to host.
Awesome. What can the camping community do to help? And I say that from the perspective of where there's free local council camps and stuff. The community can help there by just picking up after themselves. But is there anything the community can help in terms of making HipCamp better? Or not better, but more HipCamp options for
agritourism in general?
Yeah, agritourism, yeah.
Well, if they know of a great host to if you're someone out there and you know of a great property that would make a great HipCamp, I would certainly introduce them to HipCamp. We do have some referral fees. You can find them on the website. But I think the more people we have wanting, the more demand there is, the more. I heard a really good quote. I don't know who said it, but sometimes there needs to be a problem in order for a problem to be fixed. So we like to be able to, if there's a lot of demand, if there's a lot of supply, then change needs to happen to make it easier for a simplified way forward for everyone.
So just start using HipCamp.
Yeah, start using HipCamp and referring some more hosts to us if you know someone, especially a riverfront, very popular.
I think there was a couple of comments raised as well around the discussion with the national parks discussion about how, national parks, as a as a working Australian, you pay taxes that already contributes to the running and the operation of national parks, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're going and potentially having to pay upwards of $100 just to stay somewhere for a weekend. Would you rather that money go to a landowner, or would you rather it go to national parks when realistically you're probably getting the same facilities and services and arguably probably a better location?
Probably. Yeah. We meant to drop this little gem at the start to keep people engaged, and I forgot, but we were going to ask you about your 5 hidden gems. In fact, I think you came forward and said, I can offer 5 hidden gems. And we said, yep, got my pen out ready.
Yep, so, I got them ready.
So 5 hidden gems that will no longer be 5 hidden gems because we've got such a massive podcast and heaps of people are going to hear about it.
Yeah, well, I think the first one I really like is called Sapphire Coast Dairy. It's near Bega, New South Wales, so it's a little bit where I'm from my area. I'm a South Coaster. It's an old dairy farm. The host, Norm, just is a retired dairy farmer, and he just loves having people on his property. He's got an outdoor bathtub that he modelled on McLeod's Daughters. He was a bit of a romantic.
Yeah, love that.
McLeod's Daughters, so under the windmill. So that's probably this is in no particular order. So that's one of my favourites. I really like Fair Harvest Permaculture Farm in Western Australia in the Margaret River area. Certified ecotourism venue. They're only open on weekends, I think, or limited time anyway. They're not open every night of the week. So it's just you can pick vegetables. They've got a great camp kitchen. They offer yoga. Great little Margaret River region. I really love another place called Bingai Station, and it's near Tenterfield, New South Wales, on the Queensland border. It's just incredible waterfalls, incredible swimming, 4-wheel drive access only, just a really, really beautiful remote waterfall camp. And another really favourite one is Blue Lagoon. It's in the middle of mid-coast New South Wales, sort of Belgian area. And the water is amazing turquoise blue. And we this one's no longer a hidden gem because we did a social media feature on this one, which has had over 2.5 million views. Yeah. It's, probably the most picturesque campsite in Australia, if that, one of the best. There's actually plenty of picturesque campsites, but the water here is beautiful. They only offer one site, so one booking only. You've got it all to yourself. Really beautiful. And then another really nice one, I could list heaps, but I'd call my fifth one would probably be a place called Hold It Flats in just north of Mackay, North Queensland. Called Hold It Flats because it was originally the home of like a car race. So you'd have to sort of, I think it was when they would start the race, you'd have to hold it and they'd zoom off the flat. So it was like a kind of a bit of a revy kind of car race area. But they would have people to come and stay on their property when they had this car race every year. And it was so popular. She opened it full-time to campers and she was able to quit her job as a teacher. And now she just runs her campground, Hold It Flats in Queensland.
Awesome.
So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I don't mind the idea.
Are you going to get floods of emails now from property owners being like, why didn't you mention us?
Yeah.
Possibly. There's so many to mention. I think one of the things I really love about HipCamp is the hosts. They love people and they, I think probably the biggest thing I've learned over my 9 years is people really like people and to be a good person. That's really, that's at the heart of what we do here. Offer nice, good experiences for people to have great memories with their families. I personally have had a lot of memories with my kids and camping with different families on hip camps over the years. So I think, overall we're in the business of memory making. That's how I like to feel like what I do with my job.
Nice. I love the community feel. That's the vibe I've probably taken from this is that it's quite a community-based app with all the reviews. And you said on the app there was a community thread, I think. Is that what you said at the start? I'm trying to recall back.
No, I think what I might have been referring to then is my work with our social media, now our Instagram in particular. So as being global social media manager for HipCamp, I have a per country strategy and then a per channel strategy. So, you people may think Australians and Americans are very similar, are the same, but we're very different in terms of the culture and community.
Yep.
And then also, Facebook is different to Instagram. But where I was getting at with the community is that we now have, I have not posted a single thing on on Instagram in Australia for a long time, because the community, the way the collaboration requests work now, we have so many campers posting their stays and adding us as a collaborator, which means it runs on our account, that it ends up being, it's ended up to be a community feed, really. It's campers having a great time doing the posts. They're doing the marketing for me, which is something that any business really wants, is their community doing their marketing for them.
Yeah.
So we've got to this really great place, which has taken years. I've been doing it for 9 years now, and that's lots of commenting, lots of engagement, lots of encouragement, lots of DMs, lots of, and people probably average about 5 camping trips a year. So, they might do, their last trip might have been 3 or 4 months ago, and then they, remembered that HipCamp really liked that and they shared that. So they'll do it again, and then their friends see it and they do it. So it just becomes like a big snowball effect of sharing, which is great.
The marketing for you, but it's all unbiased, useful, quality information that they're sharing, which is
very authentic.
Everyone wins, right? That's awesome.
Yeah,
that was really good. Thanks, Brooke. I've got a much better insight on HipCamp now. I'm going to go and I must have used it once or twice. I'm sure I've used it a variety of apps, but I haven't used it recently. But I'll jump online and use it, and our community should jump on and use it too. But we appreciate you joining us today. That was a really good chat, and hopefully our viewers have got some good insights into HipCamp. Did you have anything to add? Sorry, before
if you've used HipCamp, let us know what your top stays are.
Yeah. Give the hosts a shout out.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, Brooke. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brooke. Great to meet you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Catch you later.
All right, another episode down. That was good. I'd got far more. I knew HipCamp was there, but haven't used it that much. But I feel like I want to go and do some more research on HipCamp now.
Yeah, probably better opportunities to get away.
And hopefully it builds more with this, the Queensland proposal, 2024 proposal. It'd be nice to see more options out there on top of national parks as well.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. That was another
hopefully
episode
before we're dead, though, because 2045 is a long way away.
That's what I was thinking. I don't know. Hopefully I'm still camping by then.
Yeah. Catch you later, guys.
See you next time. Bye.